Welcome to our PEHP Wellness webinar for April. We will be talking today about smart saving and savvy spending, small steps for greater financial security and true wealth. I'm Emily Meekum, one of the health and wellness coaches here with PEHP Wellness. So let's get started. Okay, there are some variations with these, but here are 4 main steps to financial security. 1, manage your cash flow. 2, pay down debt. 3, insure against risks such as health insurance, car insurance, homeowners insurance. And then 4, invest for the future. Today we will mainly be talking about managing your cash flow and investing for the future. Each of these larger steps is made up of smaller actions you can take today, one at a time. I don't know how many of you have heard this quote before, but I think it's an important principle to remember as we go through this webinar today. A man is rich in proportion to the number of things which he can afford to let alone. Lindsey Burgess from youneedabudget.com, or YNAB, wrote a blog post making the statement, "I'm not working for more stuff, I'm working for my future freedom." Does this statement apply to you? Would repeating this often when you are making decisions about purchases help you choose where to allow your money to be spent? Lindsey says the more money we have socked away, the more we budget for the future, and the more respect we have for every dollar, the more options we have. To me, at this stage of the game, options are everything. They are a luxury and a privilege. Options are freedom. So my question to you would be, are you able to let things alone, to judge how much you can afford by the things that you choose not to buy? Popular personal finance blogger Mr. Money Mustache, whose real name is Pete, proposes that even though we often want tips for how to build wealth, which we will be discussing today, what we really need is a mindset shift. So we want to talk about this before we go into the tips. What is your actual reason for accumulating wealth? We work and save to become wealthy enough that we won't need to work any more for money in, hopefully, a reasonable amount of time. It isn't actually about the amount of material goods we can build up. He says, solid tips are valuable resources, but they work a lot better if they are combined with changes to your mind that make the tips turn into real improvements in your lifestyle. So you can train yourself to not want things rather than feeling deprived when you choose not to buy them. You can program your mind so that things become less important. Many things we assume will bring happiness, but this can be a slippery slope towards spending more than we can afford. So let's hear what Mr. Money Mustache has to say about true wealth and happiness.
By understanding what happiness means and helping to decouple the idea of happiness from owning certain things, you can really amaze yourself at how fun your life can be, because really the whole secret to living a rich life is not feeling like you need more than you already have. Otherwise, you're going to just be always craving more and more and more until you get to the Gulfstream G650 jet, and then you'll be like, okay, now I have everything, but I'm still not happy.
So his recommendation to gradually shift your mindset is to practice not buying something that would have been a kind of treat for yourself. Maybe new clothes or shoes, a soda on the way home from work, some kind of new device, a trip to the ice cream shop, etc. Over the coming month, reflect on how you feel without that item. How do you feel knowing you voluntarily controlled your urge to buy something? Repeat that experiment over and over and notice if your mind shifts to wanting less. Another quote from Mr. Money Mustache, now that you know that virtually no purchases, regardless of their convenience or enjoyability, will actually make you happier, you can instead make the decision based on whether or not you can afford it. So you'll make decisions based on accumulating what he calls lifetime wealth, which are things that last, such as health, relationships, memories, instead of basing spending decisions on convenience or short-term pleasure. So now that we've thought about the mindset that we are working with, Think about how the ancient Greek saying, know thyself, applies to setting your financial goals. When you set goals, you can create a plan to save and spend. You have to know where you want your cash to go before you start creating a plan. This will be different for different people. Some examples might be paying off credit card debt or student loans, saving for a down payment on a home, saving a certain percentage of your income for retirement, or maybe to begin saving for retirement, or saving for a vacation. It might be, of course, a combination of these, both longer term and shorter term goals. In a recent post on YNAB's blog, Todd Curtis called goal setting the fundamental first step of successful budgeters. He says, it doesn't matter what your goals are, it only matters that you have them and that they represent what's most important to you. Goals protect your money from going off and doing its own thing, from simply disappearing with who knows what to show for it. Set goals that are focused yet flexible, and you'll stay in it for the long haul. So when you set goals, it will help you choose and follow the daily steps to take to direct your money where you want it to go. Let's watch a short clip from Jesse Meekum. He's a CEO at YNAB, explaining an important principle behind setting financial goals and really goals in general.
Hello YNABers, my name is Jesse Meekum from YNAB. It stands for You Need a Budget, but what you really need is a goal. We just couldn't say YNAG. It doesn't sound good. Yeah, there's something there, but it's not for us. So it's a goal. Budgeting is really just about goals. The smallest goals, the largest goals, it's all goal setting. It's not about restriction. It's not about dieting. It's not about withholding joy. It's not about really even putting things off. It's just about saying, what do I want? And then can I get my money to play along? And it turns out that if you tell your money what to do beforehand, that the money is fairly compliant. It's when you're trying to tell your money what to do after it's already done the thing that doesn't work so well. So in light of this, I wanted to talk about goals and a few key points. When you're tackling a big goal, this fat man here is looking at the goal, the entire chunk, and they're saying, this is impossible, right? Look how small he is. He can't climb that goal. It's impossible. No running start will help, and no one's there to lift him. He's on his own, and it's impossible. So you break up the goal. This is standard stuff into smaller little steps. Look how happy this guy is. Still bald, but happy. And he's able to just kind of one step at a time, just walk up toward that peak right here where he's achieved the goal.
Okay, so now that we've talked about goals, the importance of knowing your mindset, then it can be time to start tracking your expenses so that you know where your money is actually going. And that's where a budget can come into play. All right, so some people do feel like a budget means deprivation. It's an enemy, something to be avoided. But maybe you can start shifting your view to think of a budget as a very good friend. The best kind of friend is one who is honest with you, who will tell how things really are. They can provide helpful feedback when you are willing to ask. They are non-judgmental, only pointing out areas of concern because they are concerned for how it could affect you. They also don't expect you to change everything all at once. Your budget can be this kind of friend. It helps you identify when the way you are spending your money doesn't actually align with what you value or your overall goals. You'll see your spending patterns so you can decide how to direct your money. Financial stress often comes when your money isn't helping you achieve what matters most to you, not necessarily only from the amount of money that you have. Let's hear what Jim Barnett, personal finance professor at LDS Business College and real estate broker, has to say about how to start budgeting.
I recommend that people take 90 days and track every penny they spend. Okay. I always use Slurpees because I love them. Okay. Go to 7-Eleven, you buy a $1 Slurpee, you write it down. You write down every penny you spend for 90 days, track it. And then try and create a budget based on your spending habits and break stuff down. And I think most people are shocked at the amount of money they spend eating out is the prime one.
Yeah.
And so for me, when I have my dollars I earn, and I don't spend everything on investment. I mean, I still eat out. You know, I still have to sharpen my saw, so to speak, and enjoy doing things, sports or whatever. So it's okay to spend money on those things, but if I'm spending more money on stuff like that than I'm bringing in, and upside down, then that's a problem.
So like he says, track for 90 days and then build your budget based on that and breaking your expenses into simple categories. Dave Ramsey does say that sometimes more categories can make it easier when you are just starting out, so keep that in mind. For example, in my food category, I break it down into eating out and groceries, and that helps me simplify. So now that you've tracked, now comes the fun part. That's finding your spending patterns. Look through your expenses and identify areas where your spending does not align with what is important to you and could possibly be reduced. I let myself spend more on groceries than others might because it brings me joy to cook for myself and to share meals with others. The important thing is to remember that mindset shift we talked about earlier, to know the real goal you are working toward. Decide the actions you can take today that will help you spend less in one or more of the areas that you identified. And we'll be going over simple tips to spend less a bit later in the webinar. Choose the amounts you will try to stick to spending in each category for the month, recognizing that you will need to adjust as you learn. One important point is to remember to budget a small amount for fun money, or blow money as some people call it, so that you have something for which you don't need to account. It can be spent just because. Dave Ramsey says it's just miscellaneous pocket money that can be used for anything. It's kind of a way to blow off steam. For example, I love self-serve frozen yogurt, so sometimes my blow money goes toward that. Sometimes it's gone toward signing up for a last-minute race that I hadn't already budgeted for. The point is to create some breathing room. This is especially important for couples. The relationship and budget can benefit from each person having a little bit of discretionary income for which they don't need to explain their spending to the other person. Now, keep in mind that as you're making these small changes in categories, that these saving small amounts can add up to large monthly and annual savings, and so it's worth your effort. Don't stress about saving every cent possible, but see what is realistic for you. Maybe make it a game and see what you can reduce. All right, let's talk about investing in your future. Now that you have your goals set for why you are saving and you know what you spend, you can determine how you will save. Your future can be retirement, of course, but also include the goals that you have, such as a trip, going back to school, buying a new car, buying a house, etc. One important principle agreed upon by pretty much any finance professional is to pay yourself first. Warren Buffett said, "Do not save what is left after spending, but spend what is left after saving." I remember my dad has always loved the book The Richest Man in Babylon, which basically teaches wise financial principles from the standpoint of parables from ancient Babylon. And a principle in that book is that a part of all you earn is yours to keep. So be sure to pay that to yourself first, no matter how small it is. Make your savings automatic. Use direct deposit to a personal IRA or 401k or other savings plans offered by your employer, so it goes right from your paycheck to your savings or investment retirement accounts. Gradually increase the percent of your income saved by 1% a year, or whenever you get a raise, or more often. Work up to 15 to 20% of your income, or even more if you can. It's important also to build an emergency fund. Let's listen to Jim Barnett, again, the finance instructor at LDS Business College. Let's hear his recommendations about how to build an emergency fund. How much would you recommend a person have in an emergency fund? We know we're supposed to have money set aside for those things that come up. So
Sure.
What do you think is a good rule of thumb?
Now, rule of thumb, I mean, this is pretty well known at help size 3 to 6 months, which I recommend the same. Most people don't have it. I read an article a couple weeks ago, a month or so ago, that this individual had written, a well-known author, had written an article about how many people, roughly 50% of Americans could not come up with $400 in an emergency if they had to today. And he was one of them. He said, I'm in this group. He said, he was a well-known published author, written TV sitcoms, different things. And he said, I couldn't come up with $400. He said, the majority of Americans, whole rate was over 50%, could not come up with it. So to say to have that is great, but to come up with it is a lot more difficult to do. But it comes back to a budget again. We were kind of beating this dead horse a little bit, but a budget where you pay yourself first and not put money in some sort of a savings or a money market. And we can talk about where to put money, but somewhere where you put money, hopefully where it's growing. I don't recommend putting it in a mattress. We call it mattress money. Or just hiding it in the mattress or in a coffee can in the backyard just because it's not earning. I do recommend you do have cash in the house or present somewhere in a safe place, but at least 6 months in reserve for that. That'll help your budget. When the car breaks down and you didn't have allocated to spend $1,000 on a car repair, you have it in this reserve fund or this account that you can pull from when you need to.
So remember that an emergency fund will give you breathing room. It will decrease stress because you won't get blown over by unexpected expenses. So start early. Focus on what you will save each paycheck or each month. No matter the amount, save regularly. As we saw earlier when setting goals, break down your large long-term goal into what it will mean in short-term steps. You're more likely to be successful by keeping short-term goals in sight. And then, of course, track your progress. So how do you know where to start? What if it's overwhelming? I spoke with Mike Wilson. He's a retirement planning advisor here at Utah Retirement Systems. Let's hear what he has to say about where you could start.
Well, if a person's overwhelmed with the idea of saving for retirement, having enough when they get to that point, what's something small? Where would you recommend they start?
Oh, the easiest place to start is to sit down with one of the retirement planning advisors here at URS, because they can sit down with us one-on-one. There's no charge. Spouse can come in too, and then we'll help folks figure out, here's what your tier 1 or tier 2 benefits will look like. Here's what your Social Security benefits look like if you're in the Social Security system, and then we can help you figure out, are the different savings plans. Is a 401k better than a 457, or is the Roth? All those things we can help folks figure out. In a one-on-one setting, if they need to be saving more, we can help them figure out how much more they need to be saving. If they're not sure on their investment choices, because we have a lot of those in our plans, we can help them figure out which fund or funds make the most sense for them from an investment perspective as well.
I actually recently did my individual retirement planning session, and even though I had already been saving, it helped me organize my plan a little better and get a clearer idea of what I really need for when I retire. Also, remember to use your employer matches for your retirement plan. If you don't take advantage of those matches, then you're leaving money on the table. That money would add up over the long run. Save unexpected income. So when you get, if you get a tax refund or if you get a bonus, try to put at least a portion of those things into savings. One idea that I hadn't thought of before that I came across while researching is that if you splurge on an item, including small ones, put an equal amount of the cost of the item into savings. And if you can't afford both amounts, then you can't afford the splurge. So that would just be something to think about before you go ahead and pay for that. All right, so now we've talked about savings goals, we've talked about how to know where your cash is going, and you've determined how you will save. So let's talk now about some ways to spend less in different areas so that you can save more. Entertainment. First of all, consider canceling cable. Pretty much any streaming service like Netflix, Hulu is cheaper than cable, and then you aren't paying for channels that you don't watch. I looked on Just a Girl and her blog about what they had done when they canceled cable. They were paying $73 a month for cable services, so $876 a year. By canceling their cable, they were able to save $697 a year after buying the annual subscription to Amazon Prime, and then a Roku box and the Leaf antenna. So they still saved almost $700 a year just by canceling cable, and they don't feel like they're missing anything. So that's something to think about. If you are going to keep cable, think about bundled packages for phone, internet, and cable. You might be able to save money by paying separate, or instead of paying separately for each one. Then use your library for ebooks, DVDs, etc. Don't forget to look for discount tickets, or maybe go to matinees instead of evening movies or plays. Check out amateur sporting events instead of professional ones. And then you can use Groupon or similar sites for discounts on services, but make sure that you're only using them for items you actually use or were planning to use. Then something that might add up you might not realize is those in-game purchases on your phones. So limit those and remove your credit card information from any sites or apps where you do play games where they make it easy to spend your money. Finally, find free events in your area. Libraries, festivals, museums, and art walks are good options. Okay, this is a big category for most people. How can you spend less on food? First, bring your lunch from home more often. I took a poll, just an informal poll here at my office. The average cost of lunch was $7. The average American eats lunch out 2 times a week and spends about $10. So as you budget, note how often you eat out for lunch and see if there are ways to cut that back and bring food from home more often. And it will likely be healthier as well. Learn to cook at home. Just find a few simple meals that they don't have to be gourmet, that will include vegetables, include good nutritious food, and make those more often. Include them in your meal rotation. Grocery shop on a full stomach, and especially helpful if you have a time constraint. You're more likely to spend more if you have all the time in the world. Make a list before you go based on the meals that you'll be making and stick to it. Also, shop less often, so maybe once a week, because the more often you shop, the more you tend to spend per trip. Instead of just picking up the 1 or 2 items that you needed, you see a couple other items, and those add up. Buy in bulk and try buying generic. Prep ingredients yourself instead of buying pre-cut items to save some money. However, go ahead and buy the prepped ingredients if instead you would be eating out. Then also with coupons, some people do well clipping coupons, but don't worry too much about it. Just use them for items you already buy. Otherwise, you spend more than you would have and will have items that you don't need. Okay, how can you spend less on home and car? Well, learn to change your oil, washer fluid, etc. But know what repairs are worth your time and effort and which would be better to take to a professional. Also, keep up with regular maintenance. Make sure you're getting your oil changes and your tires rotated on time. That will prevent costlier repairs down the road. A Michelin tire engineer recommends checking your tire pressure when you fill your car up with gas and reinflate if needed. You can actually increase your car efficiency by up to 3%, so you'll spend less on gas. He also recommends driving more slowly and smoothly, reducing the quick acceleration so that you can increase your mileage. Think about raising your car insurance deductible. That can save a good percentage of your premium. Look around for lower insurance rates, ask friends and family who they go with, and check around annually for those lower rates. Recently, I was able to save about $30 a month by switching providers. I also took the time to actually look through my policy and realized I was paying for unnecessary perks in my coverage. Then consider downsizing your home. If kids have left or you don't need as much space as you have, that might be an option. You can save in costs there. Then also don't forget to pay your bills on time to avoid any fees. If you do accidentally pay a bill late, call to see if it can be waived. It doesn't ever hurt to ask. Many times they will drop it if normally you pay on time. All right, so those are some kind of day-to-day things. But sometimes there are the big purchases that we need to make. Cars, homes. I spoke with E. Jeffrey Hill, PhD. He's a professor at Brigham Young University, and he has the acronym HALT that he recommends thinking about before you make big purchases. So let's listen to what he says.
The HALT principle is don't spend money when you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. When you do
fritter away your money. You spend your money on things you don't value, and your money will cause you frustration. When we're hungry, angry, lonely, and tired, it's a big temptation to use the money to make us less angry. But then we spend it. There's a lot better way to get less angry. You can take a deep breath and go for a walk without spending the money. When we're hungry, that's another thing on the grocery. If you go shopping when you're hungry, you spend a ton more. Yeah. It's good to go grocery shopping right after you eat.
Right.
When you're lonely, you're trying to buy something to make up for something. That's not what money's for. What you should do instead is connect with someone, and so that you're not lonely. So when you use money for what it's not really designed for, it's a waste that causes frustration.
So just remember to halt before those big purchases. Another important point is decide that if something is over a certain dollar amount, that you will never buy on the spot. Wait at least a day before deciding. Some people say maybe 30 days depending on the item. Many deals are framed in a way that they make you think they are only available right now, but often they can wait. Ask yourself how many working hours the item will cost you. What's the cost of ownership? So if you buy a boat, how much will you be paying for gas, maintenance, insurance, storage, etc.? Ask, what is the least that I need? Do I have to buy the item new? Finally, do I need it now? All of those questions can help you assess whether or not to make that purchase. And then also consider your motive. Are you buying to impress people, to fill a need that really needs to be handled in a healthier way? Hopefully thinking about some of these ideas can help prevent those big purchases that you would actually not appreciate later. So in summary, decide what the true purpose is behind earning money. Know your motivations and how your current habits align. Think about that mindset we discussed earlier. Then know what your goals are for your money. Remember, if you don't tell your money what to do, it will go rogue. This is what will create frustration and stress. Next, track your cash flow, then analyze how it aligns with your goals. Determine where you will put your savings and gradually increase the percentage of your income you are saving. Make it automatic. If you don't see it, you likely won't miss it. Find simple, efficient ways to cut back on spending in the areas that aren't actually your priorities. Know whether the effort to save in that area is worth the amount you will actually be saving. So, like we discussed earlier, doing your own car repairs. Finally, have some rules for big purchases to prevent impulse buys. Most importantly, maybe, is to remember to stay the course. Flexibility will be required, and be ready to tweak along the way. The important thing is to keep going, save each month, and check how you're doing aligning your habits with your goals. I've included some resources here in case you'd like to check any of them out. America Saves has savings tools and resources, including a lot of articles and guides for creating a plan, setting financial goals, and tracking your expenses. And the second link to a life hack article basically summarizes what we discussed today, but includes some other specific tips for how to use these steps. And the Securities and Exchange Commission has a guide to savings and investing with some great basic steps for anyone who is new to saving, or maybe if you just need a refresher to make sure you're on the right course. And this last link from pcmag.com will show some highly rated budgeting or tracking apps that are available. Some are free, others have a subscription fee, but they would be worth looking into if you're trying to find a system that will work for you. So thank you for joining me today, and the slides are available for download if you'll see over on the right side of your screen. Thank you.